Well, it's another very warm and sweltering day in the month of June 1999. So where do you go? Well, yesterday we recorded a program on the juniper, and Lake Champlain was beautiful in spite of 90 degrees for the landlubbers. Today, it's going to be 90 again on the 8th day of June, and I thought, well, what do you say we go inside and find somebody with an air conditioner? My good friend Sal Righi, 39 Main Mill Street on the south end of Plattsburgh. I've wanted to get the microphone in here to talk to you for such a long time. How you doing, Sal?
Real good, Gordy.
The old spaghetti bender.
Yeah, she's on her way to have breakfast with the girls this morning.
She snuck out the door. The minute I snuck in the back door, Sal's wife, Denise, was out of here. She said, I'm going to breakfast and I'm going grocery shopping.
Oh, yeah, she makes a point of doing that when this stuff happens.
I was trying to think on the way down here, the first time I had ever met you. You've had so many lives, like I have. You've done so many things because you're interested in people and life in general. I can't remember if you and I met on a recreation field somewhere. Maybe so, huh?
We sure did. We sure did at the policeman's outing. And that was the first time I had ever had an opportunity to meet you. And the Happy Whistler was always there before you arrived. And,
Chester O.
Chester O. And then you came on the scene, and you were there every year after, and we've always had a great time.
That's a good place to start our interview. You worked with the Recreation Department under the late Pete Blumette, an experience all by itself.
That man was unreal. Nobody could ever replace a Peter Blumette. His dedication to the city of Plattsburgh and the kids, it was just amazing. The man would go out and hold the hose in the middle of winter, making the rinks. He even had a heart attack swinging a 20-pound sledgehammer to break equipment free. He was just an all-around gentleman.
How did you get started with Peter?
Well, it was John Flynn. When I came back from the service, I was a carpenter. Work wasn't that prevalent, so I talked with John Flynn. He said, well, I'll get you some part-time work if you want to go to college. And I went to college, and he put me with Peter in 1955. And,
the year I graduated from high school. I love it.
And we had a great time. It was with the basketball program, and then we started the Little League program. And there are so many people who are involved with that Little League program, Gordy. You couldn't do justice to all of the people and the people who donated things, like George Bouye and all the Bouye family. They always gave things to the kids, the hot dog rolls and the pies, and well, at the outings, look at all the people you had, community people, Guyosha's, Guy's Ice Cream, Coca-Cola. Plattsburgh Grocery gave us all the relishes and the mustards and what have you. And again, that was a George Bouye thing. And you look at Walt Ubel and Adams and all those fellas and all the things that they did. The Foxy Gagnon's dad building the wooden fence down at Little League.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I never thought of that.
People don't realize what really took place to get the whole thing going. And then when you go on to and you look at the Gerald Burdos, the McGar boys, they dedicated 20 years of their life or better to being managers on teams. And their kids had long passed on. But you have to admire those people.
That's part of that whole volunteer spirit that we talk about on Hometown Cable on this program all the time. It's not that this doesn't happen in other parts of the country. It's just that it happens that this is where we live. Mm-hmm. And we're very proud of the people who donate time. And back in those days, I think we ought to explain to people what this policeman's outing was at the end of every year. Explain how that got started and what its purpose was.
Well, it was going when I arrived at Recreation Department, and it was back with Chief Fleming, and then it went.
Boy.
Oh, I'm going way back. And then Chief Young and Chief Coyer, they were all involved in it. And it entailed getting the police department, fire department to get into games with the kids at the end of the recreation program. And they'd have a softball game, races, pie eating, doll contest down on the middle school, Stafford Middle School field. And everybody had a great day. You'd have 1,500 to 2,000 kids down on that field. And everything was donated, the pies for pie eating and you name it, the gifts. The police officers and the recreation attendants would go around to the various stores. We had Fisherman's, Woolworths, Montgomery Ward's, Eddie Dweck, the various drugstores, Larkin's drugstore, the Fit Right shop. They'd all give something for that outing. And then as it went on, I guess the problem was people wanted to take advantage of the police department because they made donations, and that's how it was phased out. They said, no, we don't want to do this, so then we had to raise money for the prizes.
Well, what a great time it was. I have kidded on the. Of course, you and I got together because I was on the radio back then, and that was the high school, Plattsburgh High School,
Right.
down there at that time. There was a field down behind that. The first thing I ever attended there was a Plattsburgh High School football game down there, and I got to know that place and skated there with my kids and other people's kids in the wintertime. But then we got there for these summertime outings, and they were great. And I always kidded Crusher O'Connell.
Oh, yeah.
When he was a little guy in the pie eating contest.
Pie eating contest, you couldn't beat him.
Well, forget it. He didn't need hands. He just couldn't wait. And he'd
yeah.
finish one pie, and you better be there with another pie. He didn't care if he won or not. He was a hungry kid.
Oh, yeah, and hot dogs, he was always back for 2 or 3. He didn't want just one. He wanted 2 or 3. And you'd look at him, and he had mustard all over his face, and you'd say, Crusher, haven't you been through here one time? Nope.
Nope. Mustard on one side and blueberry pie on the other side. What a guy.
Oh, great kid. There were a lot of great kids. And when you look at them today, they're all doing things that we have to really admire them for. I've always enjoyed kids. I've had a great time, and I'm very fortunate to have worked with kids. And I'll always, feel that way about recreation and teaching.
Nobody could estimate how many lives you've touched, not because you woke up one day when you were a young person and said, I think I'm going to help kids. It's just that it happened that way. Well, I want to go back just for a moment, if you don't mind, staggering back in time. You were born and brought up in Plattsburgh, weren't you?
Right. My dad was in the 26th, yeah.
26th Infantry. Where did you live?
We lived up on Elizabeth Street. That's where I first remember my life beginning. Then we were around the hill. We had a house on Catherine Street. And then Dad contracted tuberculosis and had to go away to Fitzsimmons General Hospital. And that left Mom alone. And so we had a mom who really did a lot for us, and we always watched out for each other. And we had a good life.
How big a family?
We only had my brother, sister, and myself, but we were close-knit, very, very close-knit family.
You went to Plattsburgh schools?
All of Plattsburgh schools, right, and then went into the military and enjoyed the military, came home, and when I got out of school, Don Duquette's dad got me. Oh, Don and I were great friends. His dad got me in as an apprentice carpenter, and I really appreciated that. Mr. Duquette was a master carpenter, and you can't beat Donald today. The work he does is just unreal. And so work was really slow, and my brother had talked to me about going back to college, or going to college, and then like I told you, I talked with John Flynn, and John got me a job with the city, and God bless all of them. they let me get through college, and I'm thankful for it.
Isn't that great? Now, you were actually assistant recreation director, right?
Yes, yeah.
For how long?
40 years.
You know, you say 40 years, like I say 36 years in the radio business, one career, then get
Yeah.
into another one. But you had 3 or 4 things going with you at the same time. I want to just spend a moment longer talking about Pete Blumet. Many of our young people who are viewing this program in Northern New York have no idea who Pete Blumet was. He was another local guy that was a pretty fantastic athlete.
Oh, he certainly was. Yeah, he played.
As a young man.
He played professional ball. He played for the Yankee farm teams, and I don't know if it was his arm that went out or what, but he ended up coming back to Plattsburgh. He was in the Navy, and he was an instructor, physical ed instructor in the Navy, and he had gone to, I believe it was Manhattan University, and graduated from there. Came into Plattsburgh in 1947, and I knew Pete as a youngster, and a great man, and I really felt a privilege to be able to work with him. He said that there wasn't a bad kid in Plattsburgh, and he was right. There isn't.
He worked so hard for kids, and you and I have felt that way right up until this time. It was a sad day when we lost him.
Oh, it was. His wife Val and the whole Zielinski family, they were just so good, you know. And how do you tell people, you know, how you feel about someone like Peter? And I think that they waited a little too long to name the park after Peter. I wish Peter could have seen that while he was alive. But that's the way things are done, I guess. In case somebody's going to go bad, they don't want to have a park named after somebody who robbed a bank or something. But I don't think Peter would ever do that. You know, I just felt that it was too bad that they didn't do something sooner. But that's the way it goes.
But under Pete's tutelage and your assistance back in those days, there were so many innovative things done for kids. The Halloween parades. Remember the parades?
My, do I? The dances, oh yeah,
All
I
the
can remember
dances.
that. And, you know, the bands that would be out there. And, of course, then the kids with the eggs. And I guess I always remember Jim Flurry. Jim Flurry was a patrolman at the time, and he caught his own son with eggs in his pocket. He took the eggs out of the pocket, put them on the back window of his car, and he said, "Tomorrow morning, you're going to be eating these." and I can always remember
With the
Jim
shells, maybe?
Oh, I'll tell you, there was nobody as hard on kids as Jim was his own kids. He made them toe the line, and that you know, the judging of those things. I have pictures. I gave Gladys Perry a picture of Dick Perry blowing his horn in the parade, and she really loved the picture.
Well, because Dick Perry, of course, was a patrolman back in those days,
yeah.
and Jim Flurry was one of the first people I've ever met in this community when I first moved here, and he and Joan
Yep.
have been friends of mine ever since. My goodness, look what they've done for the Stop DWI and the MAD
Unreal.
program in this community.
Unreal.
They, as many of our viewers may know, tragically, they lost their daughter driving while intoxicated accident.
Yep.
And but they've now got a beautiful bike path down there, and they advocate every single
and they
day.
take care of it. They maintain that religiously, because not being down at the crate, you know, you'd have to go back and forth to the crate, and you'd see them with their flowers and everything else, really maintaining it, doing a great job with it.
Well, when this crate thing first came along, were you involved in the recreation department when the crate center idea was first broached?
No, I, you know, it came about, I think, politically. It was done at City Hall. I don't think anyone had any idea of what was really going to be going on. And, you know, you hear a lot of people now. I grew up, I lived in the Crate Brothers' house, went fishing
Did
with,
you really?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, in one of their apartments, and they take my brother and I fishing. And I don't know, has the Crate Brothers ever intended that a business would be started, because basically that's what the Crate is, a business. Because if they had wanted a business, I think they would have did it themselves, and they would have been highly successful in it, as they were.
There was so much controversy way back when. They left some money for the city of Plattsburgh with fairly specific ideas to build something for the kids up around Fox Hill and the South End, and it ended up at the beach.
Yeah, I thought it was more of the Quonset type house for each ward, so the kids would have a place to go in the ward. But somehow it all got together, and I think we all have heard different ideas, and who really knows what the Crate brothers' intentions were, because it was never really written down specifically what it was to be used for. And I think Clyde Lewis did the thing that he thought the Crate brothers would want, and he went along with it, and it could have been a real success. I don't know if enough planning went into it. That's
back in those days, everybody has an opinion about it, especially people from Plattsburgh, because they realized what was involved right from the very beginning. You mentioned 1955, a significant year for you, a very significant year for me, and for another guy whom you may know, Warren Lefty Tessier, who graduated from Our Lady of Victory in 1955, a tremendous baseball player, an unbelievable basketball player, and now he's back in our community, helping us out at Evergreen.
Yeah, I see him and wave to him quite a few times in the morning. We're having coffee at the bagel shop, and he'll bring clothes in, and we'll wave, and we'll have a get-together, probably another month or two. The classes will get together, and that's where I graduated from, OLVA, and I know Lefty and all the boys over there, so we'll get to talk.
We got a chance to talk to him at the Business Expo, right, Calvin? The Business Expo a few weeks ago, and mentioned some of the things that he's very humble about his athletic achievements. But when you consider the time, and consider that, how many points? 67 points in a single game back before the three-point play in basketball. These are kinds of things that were pretty amazing for that era.
You couldn't believe him. And you'd go to the game and you were simply amazed by what the young man's talent. And not only there, you'd watch him on the pitching mound, and the boy that man could really throw a baseball. And you had to appreciate all his skills, you're right.
And as very often happened, he was injured and had to leave the game of baseball. That happened to Pete Blumet. That happened to a lot of people. We have quite a few people who are approaching our age who were superb athletes back in those days. To think that young kids from small communities like Plattsburgh could actually make a dent in Major League Baseball is pretty amazing to look back
when
on.
you didn't have all those teams. Like today, you have so many teams. It's unreal. But even to be considered back then, wow, it really had to be something. At least I think it had to be something, and I'm sure Lefty's real proud of everything that's ever happened to him.
I wish we could roll old videotape from back in the old days. There might be some old movies of Bailey Avenue Ballpark around, but there certainly isn't any video because that predated video. I spent a lot of time there in my youth. I remember one 4th of July. You didn't know who I was, and I didn't know who you was, but I boxed my own brother down there at a big boxing exhibition at Bailey Avenue Ballpark. And that was quite a park, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. They had so many things there. I can remember the King in his court, Pete Blumet bringing them in, the wrestling came in, and then you had the various beer companies that would bring in various athletes. It was quite a place, quite a gathering place.
The old Plattsburgh Majors baseball team was a pretty good team. Lots of good boxing. I mentioned boxing, but in the 50s, there are a lot of good boxing around here.
A lot of good boxing.
On the base, too.
Yeah, I had, my brother, Dean Benson, they were in the Golden Gloves, and I know my brother ended up winning the Far East Command Championship for his weight class.
Come on.
Oh, yeah. And he was with Dizzy, and Dizzy could hit like a horse. I used to really get a kick out of Dean, and when we lost Dean, we lost a real gentleman.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
What a family.
Don't get
he
me
was.
started on that.
Yeah.
We'll end up blubbering for the next 15 minutes, but great memories.
Oh, great memories. All of them, real great athletes, and they always knew you, no matter wherever they were. Dean, Wayne, always hi, and
Talk about liking kids,
yeah,
Dean Benson just loved kids, couldn't wait to get to help at the St. Augustine school out there in Peru and go to the ball games and put his arm around the kids and tell them they were worth something.
and it was always, if you remember Dean's favorite expression, if he couldn't remember your name, he'd say, "Hey, pal."
Hey, pal.
Hey, pal. And
I had forgotten that.
I can remember at the football games at Bailey Avenue when he was officiating. He put his arm around a youngster and he would explain why the call was made, and the youngster knew. They knew when Dean made a call, it was the right call. He would explain it if they wanted it, and he was great. He's a real loss to our community.
We could spend the next 2 hours sitting at this table, easily 2 hours. I mean, we've done it without cameras going. Just talking about recreation and sports in this area, the great athletes and the great kids and the great mentors who help kids along the way. There's so many other parts of your career. I just want to mention a couple of them. Then we're going to walk around and look at some other things. But when did teaching start for you?
Teaching started in 1959 at Monty Street School then, under Fred Kirk. I was very fortunate to be able to work in the city of Plattsburgh, thanks to Ed Merritt, superintendent of schools at the time. And life was just great. And it was funny because here I am teaching with some of my old teachers, and that was
That's
really
kind of
okay.
neat, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said about hometown in that respect.
Oh yeah, I can remember Jane Quinn, for example. She was the funniest lady. She saw me and she said, "My God, Sal Righi," and she was teaching 4th grade. She said, "You were in my top class." I said, "No, I was in the B group." And she said, "No, you were." I said, "Don't you remember standing me up in front of the class, taking me by the hair of the head, shaking me and saying I'd never amount to a thing?" I said, "Well, you were right." And she didn't talk to me.
That's what George Bissell
Yeah.
Sr. told me in 1961.
But she didn't talk to me for 2 weeks, and I felt so bad. Then she came over and she said, "Maybe you were right. Maybe I did say that." And oh God, she was a wonderful lady. And they all helped. That was a great thing about my teaching. I really had teachers around me who cared, and not saying that they don't today. I don't want anyone to get that impression, but they would be there after school for hours and hours and hours and working with kids. They were really something. And Fred Kirk, of course, you couldn't ask for a better boss.
You're mentioning some great names in the history of Plattsburgh, people that I had the privilege of knowing who were still around in the late 50s and early 60s when I was here.
Yep.
But that's what forms the basis of what we are today. And as you said, yes, there are still marvelous teachers.
Oh, yes.
But there were some of those people who could never, ever be replaced because they had a dedication to kids that you don't teach in any college or in any course. No. I think it's built in.
Yeah, I feel that way. You look at a lot of people and you wonder, where do they get all the energy to do all the things that they do? And, I think teachers a lot of times get a bad rap for education today. And I think that, they say, well, years ago it was better. Sure, you had mom home, and mom could work, only one member of the family was working, and if something went wrong, mom was right at school, ready to take care of any problems. And people are busy, and I think sometimes they tend to forget that, they're tied up with the computer. They're tied up with things that they have to do, sports that they're in. And it really is hard. It's hard on a parent. I wouldn't want to be a parent today. I really wouldn't.
Very, very difficult. A whole different group of things affecting the relationships between parents and their kids. When you got into teaching, you certainly didn't get into it for the money. How you remember what your salary was at my street school?
Yeah, I started off at $3,600 a year, and
Isn't that amazing?
it was funny. But you know, everybody else was in the same boat, and you had to work on your own retirement. You had to take money out of that for retirement, and that was a toughie because you were still paying, you know, for money that you had borrowed from your parents, although they weren't pushing you for the money. But it was interesting, and I worked with some great people. Dick Trombley, God. That man was so dedicated to teaching that it just rubbed off on you. It was there. You couldn't help but turn out real good. Blanche Young, God bless her soul. She is
All these names coming right back from the mist.
Yeah, and she, you know, all of them. Tracy Brennan, boy, she was a stern disciplinarian. I had her, and I know, God bless her, she taught you how to take control of a class and make sure. But, you know, you never had to yell. If you wanted to get kids' attention, all you did was stop talking. And when you'd look at them, you'd always say, are you through? And they'd say, yes. And say, okay, because my parents taught me not to interrupt people when they were speaking. And then I'd look at them and I'd say, you know, you're as bad as I was when I was in school. And then we'd go on, and the kids would chuckle. And but I had a great time with kids. I really did. And I thank those people for putting me onto it.
Well, you know, I've always said that the perfect relationship between a parent and a child is mutual respect. And the same thing is true in a classroom. Oh, yeah. Some teachers can command a respect from the students, and some teachers let the students know that they respect them and their point of view and their opinions. If you can develop that early on, you've got a chance in a classroom.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. You know, too many people think that kids are really out of it, and they're not. They're there. They have to be able to have an opinion. It might not always agree with you, but then it's up to you to try to lead the way to get them to see what you're saying. It's fun. It was a lot of fun. And
How many years?
36.
36 years teaching.
Yeah.
Ended up at the Stafford
Middle school.
Middle school.
And it really was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. But, you know, I told my wife I was going to retire, and she said, Sal, you've been retiring for the last 11 years. And I said, well, Denise, I'm making a promise. And I have never broken a promise to that lady. So then she knew I was coming out. And it was hard. I have mementos that the kids gave me that I'll cherish forever.
We're going to maybe see some of those before we finish today. You, what things did you teach?
I taught social studies and reading, and enjoyed it always.
You never actually taught art classes, but you should have, because you're a wonderful artist.
Well, I have fun doing that. I have a lot of fun.
Oh my!
doing
How many caricatures have you done in your lifetime?
I don't know. I really
Including
don't know.
a couple of me.
Yeah, I have. I've done a lot of the teachers for the end of the year party when they have that get together and the people are retiring and what have you. And I've done a few of those, and I've enjoyed them. And I had one teacher, art teacher, who surprised me because she gave me one, and that tore me up. I wasn't expecting that. That was a good one.
There's so many ways to touch kids, and you've found many ways to do it. Let's talk about, just before we move around this house and see all the other aspects of Sal Righi, 39 Main Mill Street in Plattsburgh, let's talk about how you met your wife and your own family here.
Oh, Denise was going to OLVA, and she's still a Canadian citizen. She was born in Canada, and her dad had brought her down, and she could only speak French, and she went to OLVA, and they taught her how to speak English, and she will not give up her Canadian citizenship. And that's where we met, and we just hit it off. At first, her dad wasn't too pleased with me.
I'm wondering why.
But other than that, we met that way, and I've been blessed. I always kid her by saying she's had 44 beautiful years of marriage. I've had 17, but I'm not complaining.
I talked to you on the phone to wish you a 44th anniversary. It doesn't seem like more than a couple months ago, was it?
Yeah, just a couple months ago, and it's fun. And I'm hoping that we get 45 with her because she's a great gal.
I love it. How about your kids?
Oh, the kids. Dino's an engineer in Cleveland, and Annie is in Plattsburgh. She works at the college bookstore. Her husband's at Customs, and my daughter-in-law in Cleveland is a computer engineer. And they all have good jobs, and we're just happy that they're doing that. We have great grandchildren, and we love them.
Don't we love them, huh?
Oh,
We've got
no.
11 in our family, and it's really wonderful. This man has so many interests and so many ideas about how life should be lived. I hope he's an inspiration for those people viewing, as he has been for all those kids whose lives he touched down through the years. In his case, in my case, the word retirement doesn't take on the meaning you might guess, because he's as busy now doing other things as he was before, and I'm busier than I ever was when I was in the radio business. The man stays in wonderful shape. He likes to get out and do things physically. I think that's a very important part of aging gracefully, is feeling good.
Well,
right?
I think if the devil comes after me, he'd better be in good shape, because he's going to have a tough time taking me.
Yeah. What do you do to stay in shape?
Well, I run the treadmill every morning, and I go out biking and enjoy my biking all over the city.
That's great. And there's so many other things he does. Will you show us around, show us some of your carvings? And hey, we're going to see a place where this guy sits and talks to the rich and famous on the ham radio all over the world, and so many other things to see. My friend Sal Righi on Our Little Corner. I'll tell you, the Righi living room at 39 Main Mill Street is a veritable museum of of artwork of all kinds and descriptions. It's amazing. We're going to talk about everything in this room. First of all, I want you to mention this object for me and tell me what that's all about, Sal.
This was given to me by the Palmer Angel family, and it was just thanking me for working with their son, and I thought it was really, really beautiful. And
read it to me.
I really can't read it.
I can. Dear Mr. Righi, you have the magic touch for captivating, what's his name? Jaron or Taryn?
Taryn.
Taryn's attention, imagination, and enthusiasm. He has loved you and your class and spread the word of your powerful teaching skills far and wide. No wonder he didn't want to read this himself. This is marvelous. We thank you for your inspiring, motivating ways. Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. May your retirement prove to be all you hope for, sincerely, and so on. Isn't that wonderful? What is this on the back here?
This is just a stone that, I guess the family collects things like this, and they gave it to me. It just meant so much, and I don't know. Those mementos, they mean more to me.
Those are the golden memories, aren't they?
The kids gave me the clock.
Oh, look at this.
Yeah, it really, really was.
1995 Voyagers?
Yep, the Voyagers. That was our team, the Voyager team, and I really, it was hard to talk to those kids that day. I never in my life.
It seemed like 4 years ago already.
Yeah, 4 years. 4 years, but it was a lot of fun.
Life comes in chapters, doesn't it, huh? Next chapter.
Next chapter.
Look over here on this wall. Is that what you were talking about before?
Yeah, I got that from the art teacher at Stafford Middle School, and I wasn't expecting it, because I did those for other teachers, and I'm really proud of that, that she took time to do that for me.
Now, as long as we're in this room, we have to start talking about carving. How did this carving business start with you?
Oh, God, Bob Harrison, a friend of mine who was working at the base, he's in Oregon now, invited me to a carving club, and then I met up with a man named Don Faskings from
Oh boy, a
Redford.
famous name.
Yep. As a matter of fact, all those plaques up there are carved by Don Faskings. I happened to find them.
Look behind us here.
Yeah,
Let's get the camera turned around.
I found them in an antique shop, and I said I have to have those. But everything that you see there, I have to give credit to Don Faskings, because he was the man who just told me there wasn't a thing that you can't do if you want to do it, and he guided me along the way. I can't thank the man enough.
Is it pleasurable to carve? That's a dumb question to ask, like telling somebody that does. Is it fun to whistle?
It's very
But
relaxing.
Carving, it's
Very relaxing.
But you are so cotton picking good at it. What was the first thing you ever carved?
You know, you don't. The first thing I ever carved, right up there, is a little chickadee. That was the first.
Look at that. When was that, Sal?
That was with Don Faskings. Oh, that had to be back in '89. Yeah, about 10 years ago.
This one on the right-hand side,
Yeah.
the little chickadee.
Yeah.
On the right-hand
Yeah.
side. Yeah, right there.
And then it just graduated to the other things that are there. And again, thank you, Don Faskins.
Yeah, well, I thank the good Lord for giving you an amazing talent. My wife is a big nature lover. I brought her into this room, and she almost swooned when she saw these birds. She has some carved birds in our house done by some of the good carvers in history here, but she talked about this room for a long time after she left here. How many have you done? Do you have any
Oh,
idea?
I have no idea, because
Hundreds and hundreds.
the kids have them also at their house, and the ones I didn't let them have, this and the dog.
I love that dog.
Those are my granddaughters. Did those. This one was 8 years old, and that one was 6 years old.
Come on.
Oh, no, I'm not kidding you. Carving is not, if you've got somebody that'll help you, help you along, take this off, take that just goes to show you what you can do. And
Which one of the, it's a pretty hard question to answer, because you've done fish and ducks and canes. You did a beautiful cane with a Civil War guy.
My canes are here, and
Look at these faces. Look at these amazing faces.
I just enjoy all of that stuff. It's a lot of fun, and I got a kick out of doing the one that I gave you. Again, I don't.
Because that's color, that's painted, the whole.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the reason I did it, I've known you for a million years, and you've always helped people. You're always out there. You're always, when you were at the radio station, you were always leading the parade. You weren't following it. You were leading it.
You taught me how to do it, Sal.
No, I'll tell you, and I'm not tooting your horn. I'm just stating facts, and the people of the city of Plattsburgh know it. And believe it or not, you're missed on that radio station, my friend.
You're very kind to
are
say
missed. There are people who just, now, don't get me wrong, the people who are there are fine people. But that North Country is in you. And it's not in the young people that they have now.
Life wouldn't be any fun if the North Country weren't in us, you
Right,
know?
right.
I've lived a lot of places in my lifetime, and but I've been here longer than I've been anywhere else,
Well,
so it's in the blood.
The one thing I get a kick out of is always Katie Pooler just loves the devil out of you. And she's a great friend of mine.
She's spent a little time in your house here, hasn't
Oh,
she?
yeah.
Hard to believe that little girl's now in high school,
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah, she's with my
Wow.
granddaughter. They're going to be sophomores next year.
Wow.
Unreal.
Wow,
Unreal.
where has the time gone?
Well, I got a feeling when I start walking around, I know where it's gone. It's gone to my
No.
knees and everything else.
I started to ask you before. I always get sidetracked because I'm just so much in awe of the things you've done here, the things you've carved. Is there one carving that you're more proud of than all the rest, or do they all have their own special meanings?
Well, I think they all have their place, but I think the one that I really like is the red-tailed hawk and the blue jay. And again, I have to thank Don Faskins for that.
Over here on the left
Right.
side of the mantle.
Right, because he's the guy who helped me put this all together, and I have another one very similar to it that my son has at his house. I always do things in two, so that when Denise and I are no longer around, they don't have to fight over who gets which one.
What an idea.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I should remind people that you don't do this for a living. You do it because you love to do it.
Right. I don't sell any of the stuff. I just give it to the family, and occasionally I'll have a good friend that I'm more than happy to give it to.
What a surprise that was when I came down here to swim in Levine's pool next door one day, and you hand me that cane all wrapped up as a present.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that was the only way I could say thank you for all the things you
What a
have done.
wonderful thanks. The only problem is it's so beautiful I would never take it walking except around my living room.
Well, yeah, they're meant to be used, and if you break it, we'll fix it. So
It's absolutely amazing. So you continue to carve. What projects are you working on now?
I've got a couple of birds, fish, different things. What I do, I'll work a little while and then on one get away from it, because you always think it's perfect until you look at it a little while later and you're wondering why the fish is cross-eyed, you know.
How many things you've done? I see up on the shelf up above. There are many items connected with sports. Have you done a lot of sports things?
No, not really. You know, you just get in. You see something in a book that might turn you on, and you do it. We have carving books that you get a lot of ideas out of. My goodness, you might vary it a little, but basically you get a lot of ideas from the book. That's what I like about Don Fasking. Everything that he does is all on his own. He doesn't need someone to tell him that a bird looks this way. He just doesn't need that guidance. He's fantastic.
You have. It takes the right tools, right? Not only
Yeah.
do you have to have the ability to do it, but you have to have the tools and the right kinds of wood. And tell
Right.
me a little bit about that part of it.
Well, there are different power tools. A lot of people prefer not to use power tools. They'd rather use just the chisels, knives, and what have you. And then there are various tools for different jobs. We usually use basswood for carving. Tupelo is a very good wood, and then you can get into some of the hardwoods, the maples and walnuts and what have you, and they're interesting to work with. And a lot of times you have to ask for help. I know Don Faskins, I get into trouble, and I could always turn to Don, and he'd say, no, this is the way you do it. And sure enough, the man was right. But, he had so many years of doing that. And the man enjoys himself. That's the key. He enjoys himself.
Well, so do you, or you wouldn't be doing this.
Oh, yeah.
It's got to be tremendously satisfying to finish a project.
Right, thanks to Don Faskins, and I could never say it enough. And anyone who would go to the Champlain Valley Carvers Club meeting we had people who came in there like myself who didn't know the sharp side of the knife, and we're doing great things now.
You are an amazingly quick study. I can't imagine you ever not knowing the sharp side of the knife.
Well,
based on this work, I've never seen anything like your stuff.
Well, I enjoy it, and I thank you for the compliments, but I think it all has to go back to the individual, Bob Harrison, who who got me started in this. I thought it was foolish for him to sit out in his garage and do that until until I got going. And
Well, there are other things that we don't see here. I remember you carving pins.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh, my wife. I carved pins, all kinds of birds, and for different holidays, Santa Clauses and what have you. Yeah, she has those in the jewelry section.
Some
in
of
her-
those are really quite small, so that's pretty
Yeah.
fine work. Do you have
Yeah.
to work with a magnifying glass?
No,
or
no. Most of it you can handle. Again, thanks to Don Faskings, he's the fellow who put me onto the pin thing. He does a lot of beautiful work, and if one could even come close to what that man does, it's
Oh,
unreal.
Give me a break. He's a great guy, but so are you. I want to look at some of these pictures here. Now, I see a picture on the right-hand side inside the wall. What is this large picture of?
This Company A, 26th Infantry. This is my dad. He was a cook, and he was just a great man. He passed away at age 87 and missed. He really, truly is missed. But he's the man that gave us our work ethic, and we could never
Now, are
forget.
those buildings around the old base oval? They're probably
Yep.
still there today. We could probably find them, right?
Well, Company A is gone. They took Company A down. That was near, if you remember, if you were here when the towers were up, the coal towers. It was right near the coal towers. I have one on the porch of the whole area, and my dad's in that picture. These are pictures that he was going to throw away, and I told him, Dad, don't throw those away. And I said, put them here, and I'll take them later in life, and I did.
Now you cherish them. We're going to pause for just a moment because we have to put a new battery in the machine. We'll be right back. Sal, this is an amazing photograph. You've taken us onto your porch. Last time I was on this porch, you had your shop in here, and there was carvings and parts of carvings all over the place. You moved it out of here, right?
Yeah, it's out in the garage now.
Oh, my
And,
goodness. What have we got here in this amazing photograph from 1932?
This is the 26th Infantry, starting with Company A, B, and going down. And my dad is located right here. He was a sergeant. And then you have all the mules in the back. They were used to haul the artillery around and all the supplies that were needed. You had the guardhouse located here. And the main flagpole, it's been down a long time now, and they have just the base of it remaining. It was put up by a one-armed fellow, according to the sign that they have over there. And as you go around the oval, you go by the baseball field that's still there today, and then you have the gymnasium way over on the other end. But I can remember coming through this gate, going over to the commissary, seeing all the fellows who were yard birds in their blue uniforms. They were out of the stockade. They were cleaning the area. But I remember this. I remember the big parades on the parade ground.
Oh, the parade ground, the old base oval, all the celebrations down through the years. Now, mind you, 1932 was several years even before the base chapel was built. I think that was built later, about 35.
Yeah, the base chapel wasn't there at the time. It wasn't down on that end, but it was a great place. And I can remember going to the fights with my dad, with oh golly, who did they have? They had Shapiro was a boxer. There were a number. Oh golly, there was a Dutch Slider who was a boxer, and really had some great athletes that came out of there.
Well, this goes to prove the younger people who may be viewing this program that Plattsburgh Air Force Base, as we called it when it closed in 1995, had a rich military history. We used to say it was the oldest active military installation in the nation, and its connection with the military goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War era.
You're darn right. It goes a long way,
You said you get on your bicycle and go out to the old base cemetery once in a while.
Oh yeah, I sure do. I love to go around the base because there are so many memories there. Of my dad and where he was at, and where the commissary was located, and the headquarters company, and everything else. Going by the gym and just thinking. What it was like way back then, going to ball games with my dad. It was really a great time, something you'll never forget.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I try to say it on almost every program. Plattsburgh and Clinton County, and many other portions of this great North Country, wonderful place to grow up and raise a family. It was back when you and I did it, and it still is today.
Oh, it certainly is. And you had the support of the community. I think anything that went on, people were there to support it. When we were talking recreation, look at the support that you had for Little League, for Babe Ruth. Look at the support that you have now for your football. It's the Pop Warner football, the police department, and all the things that they're putting into it. All kinds of support. It's a great community.
People realize when they're very young that you got to give back. And I know you've done it all your lifetime. I've tried to do it. I won't ever be able to live long enough to give back what this North Country has done for me, but we all have to try.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could never say that I gave back what they gave to me, because they gave me their kids, and they gave me an opportunity to have an awful lot of fun. And the best part was they paid me for doing it. I couldn't believe that.
Well, when I said we started this program, I said you've touched a lot of lives, and you have. But isn't it great when those little kids come back to you as adults, 35, 40, 45 years old, and still give you a hug and say thanks for the old days?
Oh, yeah. I remember George Bach, Dr. Bach's son, came, and he thanked every teacher that he ever had. He's a doctor today, and he came around. I thought that was great. And I always get a kick out of youngsters. They'll say, "You don't remember me, do you, Mr. Riggi?" And I'll say, "No, Ann, I only remember the bad ones, And I have fun with them. I really do. And it's nice that they remember you. I think it's one of the greatest feelings in the world. And there are some youngsters who, well, I say youngsters now, they're 40 years old and they're still saying, "Hey, Mr. Riggi, how are you?" And I say, "Sal."
You got to hang around for a long time, just so they can come back and say hello.
Yeah.
We want to see a couple of more things. We want to see your carving shop, and we want to see your radio station.
Okay.
Can we do it?
Yeah, we'll go
All
out
right,
to the carving shop.
let's move along. All right, now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. We are in the shop.
Yeah.
This is Sal's domain.
Yeah, this is the place, and especially the winter. I really love to be in here and carving. In summer, I've got too many things that I want to do outside, but I love this place. And the wife, if she wants me, she knows where I'm at.
She knows how to find you. All right, let's first of all, my eye caught this picture right here. Talk about it.
My son is from Cleveland now, and he's a Cleveland Indian fan. Every time I go there, we go to the Indian games, and he found that picture. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you can see two fellows who are wearing Yankee emblems, and he did it to me, and I love it. I love it. He gave it to me for Christmas. And I thought it was a real great gift. I love it.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Now, describe some of the stuff you've got here for us.
Well, this right here takes in, when you're grinding with power tools, it's a vent system. Everything goes down into a filter. the heavy stuff will drop in a drawer. You can take it out of there with a vacuum, and you have to clean your filters every once in a while. You have various tools. This will fit on this. For example, this is a Fordham. It's used for grinding the wood. There's nothing really tricky about it. This is very, very hard to. It's not that flexible. This particular machine is a Geschwine, and this will turn at about.
Sounds like a sneeze to me.
Yeah, it'll turn about, oh golly, I don't know, probably 50,000 revolutions a minute. And what you do is you lock these bits in. It's very much like a dental tool, and you start it up. And if you had wood, and all you do, and you have various, bits that you use with this. There are diamond bits, there are ruby bits, there are various ones that will tear a lot of wood.
Look at this.
Called a cut saw. That would go with this, and so there are various tools that you can use, and then you have power chisel, for example. This power chisel, it's not doing anything right there, but the minute you press it into wood, then you can get into it. If we're going cross grain that time, but you have these all of these various tools that you use. You use like a hair dryer on the side for drying your paint. You have pens for burning, different types pens for different things. For example, on this bird, if you to do the feathers, you use those pens. You put everything in. You put your eyes in, and what have you.
Beautiful.
And they're fun things, and have various things. And this was to show how you do the bird. You start out with a block like this, and then you start shaping it all along until you finally come out with the bird to be painted. And you can get different things. For example, here, this is a book that I was referring to where you can get ideas. And I started playing around with one of the heads. But again, it's just something to do. You have chisels that you can use, and sometimes you can go to a company, and that's an Indian head here, and they have a tape that goes along with it that you can duplicate and get the basic ideas. Then you're off and running on your own, so that you're not sure how to approach it. So they give you this cutout, and then you learn from that tape on how to do your own thing. They're from my kids.
We'll be bored without you.
Yeah, they're great kids, and that was one that a young man burned down in a school shop, and it was Mr. Righi.
Looks just exactly like you.
I thought, boy, what?
A little extra on the top there. But
I said to him, his name was Smith, and I said, do you think I could have that? And he said, if you draw me a cartoon. And I said, yeah.
We'll exchange.
Yeah, so I did that for him. And you have all kinds of books and things that, you use with this. And I have various things in various states. And you have tools galore. I mean, you have... oh golly, all kinds of knives and what have you that use this when you're moving around. And then I have my air coming in so that I can use my air brushes when I'm painting. And this is it. That's my main filtration system up there. And
you got it the way you want it, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. It really is a lot of fun. It's my home away from home, and of course, if the boss wants me, I've got the PA system, and she just gives me a yell. And sometimes I pretend I don't hear her, but she comes out and gets me.
So do you add tools every now and again? You see a tool you like and say, I got to have that one?
Yeah, there's no question about that. You've got these various tools, and even if you go to your dentist, you can get some of these tools,
Oh, wow.
and they're real fine. And again, thank you, Don Faskins. That's the only thing I could ever say. That man did more for me, and letting me have fun. And having such a nice way of pointing out you have to do it this way, this way, this way.
Yeah, I've always said, we want to leave a legacy, and we do it in so many ways. You've left about 14 different kinds of legacies, but these carvings, what a legacy for your kids and your friends and other people to have long after you and I are gone. Just absolutely terrific, because that's a part of you in every single thing you make. You're leaving a mark. Maybe even a spot of blood every now and then.
Well, when I first started carving the bird, I thought it looked so good, I told my wife that it was bleeding, and then I found out it was me, not the bird.
Did you? I wrote a column a few months back about whittling. When I was a kid, everybody had a jackknife. We wouldn't give our 7, 8-year-old kids jackknives now. They certainly couldn't take them to school, or they'd be, but back in the old days when I was a youngster, we had the high-top shoes and a little pocket on the side with your jackknife that was very sharp.
You could play Mumbly Peg, yep.
And we did play Mumbly Peg.
Yeah,
now we don't even dare to tell our kids how to do that. How we survived around the back of the neck and up and down the arm and the elbow and the outside.
Oh, yeah, skipping over
and on the top of the head.
Oh, God. If you did that today, you'd be in trouble. They probably would wonder what Mumbly Peg's all about.
We've explained it at least once. We did a show with Stan Ransom up at his wonderful home on Broad Street and talked about Mumbly Peg. I've written about it, and people respond. People our age respond and say, "Oh yeah, I remember that out in the schoolyard."
Oh yeah, my golly, is that closest to the wall? With marbles and potsies and oh God, yeah.
Potsies, haven't heard that phrase in a long time.
Oh yeah, a lot of fun.
We did have a lot of fun as kids, but the point I was making is, did you whittle as a kid?
Like the average kid, I would make a gun or something like that, the cowboy gun, and but I really didn't do a lot of whittling. No, not until Bob Harrison turned me on to.
Isn't that amazing? I can remember whittling as a kid. I can't remember anything I made except I started carving in soap. All of a sudden, my mother realized that her great, big, huge bars of ivory soap, 99 and 99 100% pure, were missing and turning into birds and frogs and things. And I'm not sure she was altogether happy with that, although she did save the shavings and put it in a little wire thing to shake in the water.
Yeah, they sure would do that. I remember that. And I worked in clay because Mrs. Baker at the junior high school was the art teacher, and I ended up winning a Junior Scholastics Award.
No kidding?
Yeah, for a bust that I did.
Where is it?
I don't know. It's got to be packed away somewhere.
You got it?
Oh, yeah.
You should have brought it out.
Wow. Just a lot of fun. I was fortunate. I had a lot of fantastic teachers who helped me along the way. I never would have been what I am if it hadn't been.
Was the drawing just a natural thing, or did you actually go to
My dad
He was an
had
artist?
Natural abilities, a great artist. My dad loved to work in leather and did some beautiful leather work, tooling and what have you.
You still have some of the things he made?
My wife has, She's got purses and things like that. We wouldn't get rid of them. They're just...
Sounds like I am, but his work area is way more neater than any of my work areas. I can never seem to get things picked
It's
up.
neat now simply because I'm not working that much in here. What I do is I clean it up and I'll come back in, and it's easier to clean it up now because I'm not getting as much work done in here and I'm back outside, so I can clean it up.
I want to ask you another dumb question. I'm not smart enough to ask smart questions, but when you're working out here on a cold winter day or night, Does does the whole definition of time take on a whole new meaning for you?
Yeah, yeah. It's just peaceful out here, and
All of a sudden, 3 hours have gone
yeah,
by.
they've gone by. Yeah, and you have a lot of time when you're carving. You have a lot of time to think about different things that have happened during your life. You're still aware of what's in your hands, but it gives you a chance just to get away and be quiet. And
How important, you and I mentioned that before. There are so many things that influence our activities in the daytime. There are so many things that stimulate young people and older people. We seem to look for more excitement instead of less excitement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as long as we are talking about the philosophy of things, I think it's very important for somebody to find a way to be alone with their thoughts every now and again, to reflect.
yeah, I think you have to stop, take a look at what life dealt you, and in all honesty, you have to be thankful for what you have, and you have to look at all the people that you've been with, and just be thankful that you had them for friends.
Isn't this a good opportunity? That's why it's very important for us to do this program today, because you and I have expressed that over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I start every day being grateful for the people I've known and the things I've done, and for being alive and well in a community like this.
Oh yeah, when you look out and you see the young people on their way to school, and you know that there's a whole new generation, and boy, you look at what are they going to be seeing. I've seen everything to this point, and what are they going to be seeing? We look at kids in school and we say, gosh, we were better in school than that. You realize what they have to learn that you didn't have to learn in school? Wow. It's unreal, the skills and things that they're learning now. Yeah, they have a lot more tools, but they have a lot more to understand. I don't know if I agree with all the testing that they're talking about, because usually the people who are making up the tests haven't been in a classroom for 100 years, and they're the people who really think that they have the answers, that if I were teaching, these kids would know this, they would know this. Not necessarily so.
I'm glad you made that point, and I should have known you'd have an opinion about that.
Oh, yeah, I do, because I watch people, and sometimes you get the feeling that teachers are doing nothing, and I watch people really, really work and wonder how in the heck go over and talk to a teacher. How am I going to get this across? People don't realize that I'd love to see the complainers walk into a classroom, take it over, and keep it organized. Just keep it organized. So that it's moving in a direction they should be. It always looks easy, but it's not always that easy.
Oh, and the bureaucracy gets thicker and thicker and harder, and it's not only difficult to run classrooms, which the sizes seem to get larger and larger, but then all the things all the people you have to answer to before you finish a day.
Yeah, and the paperwork that's involved. When you look at, for example, your administrators, they have so many things that they have to do. They're talking about PINs, people in need of supervision, and they've got to go to the courts. They've got 101 different things that they're doing. They're not just dedicated to that particular building because they have to answer the problems. We've got good people like Dave Favreau, God bless him. Dave comes in, and I can remember him coming into school and working so hard with the kids, trying to let them know that a police officer can be your friend. And, Tolbrock came in, and he was another person that worked real hard with the kids. And no matter where you look, and I'm glad to see that young Zielinski is up at the high school.
Peter's a good guy.
Yeah,
he works very hard. The kids love him, administrators love him, and he really makes a difference by being there. Just to let our people know that he has a liaison with the police department who works right out of the Plattsburgh High School every day.
Yeah, he's quite a man. He takes right after his, he'd call him Pop, Pete. And he takes right after Pete Blumette. He's got a way with kids, and I appreciate him.
That's great. Now, we have another chapter of your life we haven't even delved into yet, but we're going to spend some time at that because it's a especially wonderful for me. Some of my best friends in the whole world have been ham radio operators, and you've been doing that for how many years?
Oh, God, since 1975. Yeah, 1975.
24 years? Pretty soon your silver anniversary on the old horn, huh?
Yeah, it'll be coming up, yeah.
So we're going to take a look at that as we move through the life of Sal Righi, 39 Main Mill Street in Plattsburgh, New York.
So,
I told you this. Sal Righi's home is like a veritable museum. We're now down into the basement, into our, it seems to me there used to be a furnace down here.
yeah, there was. This was the old furnace room. We converted it over to our radio room, and we have other things in here besides
Yeah, other
radio.
things. What the heck is this all about?
I've managed to collect a few cans of beer here and there, and every time something new comes by, if I'm on a trip or something, I'll grab it. I even have friends who bring it to me now, and I just, right behind you, I've got all the sports,
Oh my gosh.
the sports cans and what have you. So it's just a lot of fun.
Wow, wow, wow. This is absolutely amazing. And you didn't even have to drink it. They're all full.
They're all full. Yep. With some of the cans you had to puncture because they were steel. And
Oh, is that it?
Oh yeah, I had a couple explode, and that's why I went
No
around.
kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
Never
yeah.
would have thought of that. The
Yeah,
heat, huh?
yeah, they just let go, and so whenever they're steel, I empty them, and of course you have the Billy beer that is there, and I chuckle at that one.
I saved a six-pack of that, and I think one of my kids drank it out
Oh,
of me.
no kidding.
So their Billy beer is not around my place anymore. Too many thirsty people in my household.
No,
What's the rarest one you got there, do you think?
Oh, I really don't know.
Don't have a clue,
No,
huh?
some of the fellows from overseas brought me some of the near beer. I don't know where I got. Oh, there's one down on the end here. That's out of Saudi Arabia. It's a near
Yeah.
beer, and then hanging up, I've got Budweiser that on that outside second from the top. Yep, that's Budweiser beer from Saudi Arabia. And
Pepsi can?
Pepsi, yeah. I put those up there, and then you've got 7-Up up in the top, second one in on the top. That came out of Saudi. And my son goes to Japan, so he brings some of the various beers back for me from there. So
When you think of the metamorphosis beer containers have gone through over the years, and the
Oh, yeah.
pull tabs and the different kinds of ways they had of getting into
yeah.
beer.
Oh my
Of course,
God.
when I was a young guy, you had to have a church key.
Oh yeah, and I've got a drawer full of those different kinds. And
Swizzle sticks.
you remember that place?
Oh my goodness.
Stick that
I don't know.
one in your pocket, because I've got a lot of those.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if you can see it, Calvin. Can you?
Oh, yeah.
Fife and drum from
Oh,
the Witherell?
Yeah.
Now you're
Yeah.
going back to the old
Dick
days.
Trombley had a friend who was a bartender there, and he gave us those.
What
Well,
a
Dick
treasure.
gave me.
It's in my pocket.
Oh,
you said put it in my
you
pocket.
put it in your pocket.
Oh,
That's a good one.
Oh,
But
great.
no, I enjoy that, and I enjoy collecting. Well, I collected pins at the Olympic Games, and had a lot of fun doing that with the Olympic business over there. I've got them.
My.
And then that's we were at the Olympic Games, our radio club, and we were all given a letter of thanks. And I designed the QSL card for the 1980 Winter Olympic Games. I don't know how many we sent out, but we sent
more
out.
than 10, huh?
Oh yeah, more than 10.
I think some of our people viewing this program may not know what a QSL card is, so you better explain that.
Well, when you make contact with someone, you exchange a postcard, and you can see
Lots
some
and lots against the wall.
on the wall all over the place, and that's a way to show that you made contact with those people, to confirm your contact with them. And
How many have you collected since the beginning?
oh God, I don't know. I had a lot of fun. I used to take it to school, take radio to school, and when we were doing our math
2 meters?
skills, no, the regular radio had an
no
antenna on the
kidding?
roof,
Oh,
and we would talk into Europe, into Japan, Asia, and then the kids would find the latitude, longitude, what time zone they were in.
That's the way to learn.
Oh
That's
yeah,
the way to
the
learn.
kids, and the kids were amazed that they could speak a different language, and or we'd make contact with the radio station that was broadcasting the space shuttle, and we had the only person in the area that I know that ever made actual contact with the shuttle was Frank Kennedy.
Frank did?
Oh, yeah, Frank.
No
yeah.
kidding.
Oh, I'll tell you, he was going wild. Yeah, Frank. I think that's one of the big things, and because Frank is, and I have to thank Frank for everything that you see radio. I have to thank Frank Kennedy because he turned me on to onto amateur radio.
Frank is a good friend of mine and yours and has been for a long, long time. The first amateur radio operator I ever met in this area was Art Prairie.
Yes, sir. WA2SNW. A good friend of mine. As a matter of fact, he willed me his linear. And
Did he really?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, the Wiry station used that tube. They blew their transmitter tube, and they borrowed that tube from Art. And Art was a man all his own. You can't describe Art.
I remember him from the racetrack years ago. He
Yeah.
used to be a starter at the racetrack and
Right.
worked at Airborne for a long time. But he used to tell me, see my tower, Gordy? I got more power than Wiry's got.
Yeah. Oh, he did.
When Wiry was 250 watts. I think he was pushing 1,000.
Oh, he could push over that. I can remember one time working a pileup, and that's when a lot of people are trying to get to one radio station on an island. And he told me that he'd be able to get in touch with him. So I said, well, go ahead and show me. So he put his calls in WA2SNW, and nothing happened. And so he said, well, wait a minute, let me get their attention. And he reached under and he turned the variac on that thing. And, I don't know how many watts, but that tube started to glow. It was unreal. And he said, WA2SNW. And the fella came back and he said, you're in there all alone. And he said that the fellow said, what are you running? He said, I'm QRP. And the guy said, yeah, you're QR. It means low power.
Yeah, low power.
And but Art willed that to me, and I have it. I still haven't put it on here because I'd wipe out half the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. You'd get into everybody's radio and television.
He used to get into church.
Oh, he did?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They'd call him up and they'd say, Art, you want to turn it down until church is over?
The
Okay.
PA system, you
Oh,
mean?
yeah. He'd go right through the PA system. It was
The radio station used to get on the PA system, or the telephone did, at the Nazarene Church next to Upper Cornelia Street. But ham radio operators have always been a special charm for me. I never got my license. I threatened to several
Oh, you
times.
should.
The hardest thing I ever did was when I was, I can't remember what I was going for in the Boy Scouts, but I had to learn the Morse code.
Oh, boy.
And my poor father used to have to put up with me clicking away.
Yeah.
And I suppose you learned it 1,000 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I really did. And Frank Kennedy, again, I have to thank him. He's the one who heard me playing with the code, and he said, do you know what you're doing? And I said, yeah, I think I do. And he listened, and he said, why don't you come over and take the test? And I did, and thank you, Frank Kennedy.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
You still use it?
Oh, yeah, not as much. You got some people who are fanatics. They really enjoy their code, but it was a requirement, and you met the requirement. And occasionally you'll tune into it and listen to it, but I get a bang out of it. I really do.
Now, you've collected these cards from all over the world, and some very famous people on the other end.
Yeah. I've got King Hussein over here.
All right, let's move around. You can just keep talking as we go and
This is
explain what we... Oh, there's the picture.
yeah. That's that was a contact. You know, the funny part was I was just calling out on the radio CQ. CQDX, and that means anybody outside the United States who hears my call, please respond. And all of a sudden I heard JY1, and my God, I knew who it was. And, you know, I tried to pass him on to other people because I know other people wanted to talk, but he declined that. And I got ragged by Jack Stewart saying, yeah, you talked to Hussein. Sure you did. Well, when I went to school with a big envelope with the seal on it,
I love it.
he had to eat
Eat the crow, right?
He had to eat the crow, and I got a kick out of that.
Oh,
But,
revenge is sweet,
Oh,
Jack.
yeah, it is. It is. But when you can get a what's his name? These are cards from. Every one of these cards is from a different area in the world. And this lady was a lot of fun. I talked with her, God, probably a month, and her favorite expression was "ooh la la," and I can remember it. And you know, you go, like I say, all over the world, and these are confirmation cards, places that you've been, and people that you've talked with, and we have. The one in here that I really like, that's the one from Vatican City.
Vatican City, look
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah, I had two contacts. They had two different stations, and then this group, they were similar to the Thunderbirds, an Italian group in Italy, and you just go on into Japan and Hawaii, all over the world, and you know when you look at the stamps in Peru, good God, it's just unreal. This fella, it was funny, his wife, he was from the United States and he was in Lebanon. And his wife was expecting in New York City. And I got talking with him and he said, would you call a number for me? I said, well, we don't have third-party traffic with Lebanon. And I said, I can't let you talk to her. So he said, no, just call her and let her know that I'm going to be home for the birth of our child. So I said, okay, and I dialed the number he gave me. And then what I did, I played in between, and I said, you know, I told her who I was, and she said, oh, and I said, I'm talking with your husband, but I can't let you talk with him. And I said, what I'd like to do is let you know that he will be home for the birth of your son. So she's going, oh, I love him. And I said to the fellow, I said, I'll bet that your wife at this time would be saying, I love you, I love you, I love you.
I love it. You're amazing.
So they did. They sent me the birth announcement.
Did they?
Yeah, and I thought it was just fantastic the way it all happened.
A lot of these cards have stories, don't they?
Oh yeah, a lot of them do. You know, you try so hard to get through to some of these places, and you never think you're going to get there. Get into Israel. I never thought I'd be there, and but into the African nations, and there's one fella in here. Oh, this fella was from. He was at DeCarlo. And he was in the British Virgin Islands.
That brings me back to the old boxing days here with Frankie DeCarlo.
And we were sending Morse code, and all of a sudden, hey, Plattsburgh, you know, and he came on like crazy. And this is when I talked to the South Pole and the North Pole at the same time. I had a fellow who lived out on Cumberland Head. His girlfriend was out on Cumberland Head, and he was in Antarctica, so I was phone patching him through every morning. And one morning I heard this station sign clear, and I asked the fellow, I said, well, where was that station at? He said, oh, it was at the North Pole. So I said, gee, I wish I could have gotten in contact with him, then I would have been with the North and South Pole at the same time. So he said, no problem, and he gave a call, and that fellow was back up there. And they both sent me cards for the same day.
Neat, isn't it?
And then ships at sea, you would talk to those and relay Miss America. This fella sent us right here. He sent us all this different money.
Coin.
And yeah, coins from his country, and we had, I forget how many sets of coins he sent. We handed them all out in the class and kept that for this book. But we had Miss America, and then of course my favorite always has to be that.
And can handle emergency and personal communications and create goodwill and diplomacy. I did a lot to do a lot, so don't give me any static about how messy this place is.
And I did. I show that to Denise, and of course, what you do, you have all these fellas that you talk with in the morning, and those are pictures of. Well, there's Frank. He's my number one guy. You just everything that you do. You have a great time with in the morning, and before you know it, 2 hours, 3 hours have gone by, and you have to get out of here.
I have to tell the people, as I don't think we did this on camera, how your schedule works here. You go to bed at night at 10:30, or maybe 11. You're back up at 1:30.
Yeah, 1:30 in the morning. I get on. Well, this morning I was on at 1:33. 1:33, and I talked with K8AXV. He was the first person I talked with. I don't put them all down because I'd be writing forever. It's so many guys on the net in the morning. And then about 3 o'clock in the morning, I get on the treadmill and run for about 40 minutes. And I cheated this morning. I only went about 32 this morning. And but that's what I do. And then my day is off and running. I go and have a coffee with the fellows, ride my bike around town a little bit, and then come back and do things around the house. So that
Life is good for Sal Righi, I can tell.
I'm fortunate to have the family that I have that puts up with me, to be very honest with you. Denise, she's a sweetheart. She has never once said, well, I'm getting sick of this, or never once. She's always been there for me, and I'm very, very fortunate.
Those kinds of partnerships are extremely important. People say, you talk about your wife all the time. I say, she's the glue that holds me together. She's put up with me for a long, long time. I could never do what I do in life if Kay didn't support me in everything that I do. And those partnerships are vital. Yeah. It's hard to explain that for people who don't necessarily have good marriages, but those partnerships are important for you and me, and I'm glad you brought that up.
The most important thing that we say to each other every day is "I love you," and I think that
it's a good place to start, isn't it?
Darn right. The funny part is when my kids come over and when they leave, "I love you," and it's a family tradition, and I hope it never stops.
Boy, if you could have seen the surprise anniversary party that our kids threw for us a couple of weeks ago up in the west end of town. Oh, my. But having a large, loving family, love to come home, love to be with each other, and are not afraid to exchange that. Some people are afraid to say, I love you. Yeah, but I'm ready to suffer the consequences of saying that many times every day.
Oh, yeah. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. If only more people could learn to say those little words, it'd make a big difference. And people might say, oh, you're mushy. I'm not mushy. I'm a guy who's still in love. That's my problem.
You got it. You know what the bottom line is in life, and that's what it's all about. There are a couple of terms I want you to explain for the uninitiated here. First of all, let's talk about what a phone patch is. I'm sure many of our audience don't know that.
Yeah, well, a phone patch is what you do is you go from your radio through this unit. This unit is hooked to the telephone. And what you do is you can transfer from your radio the sound to your telephone. And that's why usually you hear people saying over. And that means that the person on the radio end is either going to push down or he's going to release on his key. You're hearing the entire conversation. You have to hear it to know when to key over. But that's basically what it is, using your radio, getting the sound through this unit to the telephone, and the person they just enjoy themselves.
So somebody can call from another country and you can hook up a local telephone call and...
No charge.
No charge?
No charge. Like from Antarctica to Cumberland Head, no charge. And person, Art Prairie, used to Art Prairie used to patch guys at sea every Christmas. He would do 25. That was his Christmas present.
Isn't that beautiful? We're going to put a new battery in and talk more about that. This is a high-class production, you know. We have special staff that run in with fresh batteries every now and again. The only thing they don't bring us is hot coffee and croissants. But we got a new battery, and we're ready to go. We're talking about Art Prairie and his phone patches. I go back to 1961. Maybe that's how I got to meet Art Prairie. He called me up, and he said, I got a phone patch. Of course, I had no idea what he was talking about. I said, what's it from? He said, well, it came off a merchant marine ship, the Mediterranean Sea, and ended up being transferred from a submarine to me, to you, and it was a birthday message from an old friend of mine who'd gone to Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point and ended up on a ship and wanted to wish me a happy birthday. But where that message came to before it got to me is amazing.
Oh yeah, they have networks where they will pick up traffic. They call it traffic, and they'll bring it into one area. Then they'll try to find someone in the New York area close to. People will acknowledge it, and then they will transfer the message, and they make sure that the message is exact. There are no changes allowed. They'll spell it out phonetically to make sure things are exactly the way they should be, because nobody wants to foul anything up.
But, you know, isn't it great to get those messages at the holiday time? You were talking about Art Prairie doing 20 or 25 of those at Christmas time. Mm-hmm. How important was that for guys and gals that were stationed all around the world?
Well, it was unreal, you know, and you could see that the joy, though, in Art. Art never had a big family. He had sisters and his wife, but you know, that was it. And he just loved to go out. He loved to be around people. You knew him. He just loved to be around them and to do that. And you know, he would put calls out to California. It was unreal. It didn't bother him where the calls were going. They were going to be 25, and he would pay for it. And I always appreciated Art for that.
I'll never forget that back in the days before we had CNN and so many people who could get cameras and radio things on the scene quickly. Mm-hmm. Art was the first ham radio operator from this area and from almost anywhere to get a hold of another ham radio operator during the big Alaskan earthquake. Mm-hmm. And he relayed information to me and made me seem like a big star on the radio way back when, because he was getting information directly.
Yeah, and I helped a few people out when they had problems around Puerto Rico. People called me up, and I was able to get in touch with hams, and they found out that the area where their people were was not hit. And it really made them feel good. They sent me letters of thanks, and but you know, that's what it's all about. I think everybody who's an amateur radio operator just has fun, and they're willing to help out. And if you look at the amateur radio operators, the Mayor's Cup, when that was going on, they would be there. The different walkathons, they would be there, letting people know where the march is at this time along the route. And they've helped. They've helped when there were problems out on the ocean. I can remember being part of one that helped with a sailboat problem. And we got letters of thanks for that. And it's always nice when you get those, but the important thing is doing something to help people out.
Are there organizations of amateur radio operators here in this area?
Oh, yeah, the Champlain Valley Amateur Radio Club, definitely. And the cameraman spoke of Al Haggett, and there is no one any better than that gentleman. He donates so much of his time and money to that group that you just can't believe how important he is. And he works with a real group of go-getters, so we're proud of Al.
How many people? Do we have a lot of amateur radio operators in this area?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of not all of them belong to the club, but there are a lot of amateur radio operators in the area. My goodness, you know, they have the plates. A lot of times you'll see plates and you'll say, golly, who is that? You know, you just don't know them all. There are so many.
I hear Lynn Wilkie on once in a while.
Oh, yeah, Lynn is a great fella. We used to get a kick out of him building the different radios, and he was happy if he transmitted 2 blocks on, and he was a lot of fun. And He's a real good time fella and always willing to help somebody out. That's what I like about him.
I can picture people viewing this program, young people especially, and maybe older people ready to retire who say, wow, I never thought of that. What a great idea that might be as a hobby. How do they get started? What do they have to buy for a radio?
Well, the thing is, you can listen and see if it's something that you really want. Have a shortwave radio. A lot of people start out that way as listeners, and then they get involved. I'd recommend they go to a club meeting. Champlain Valley Amateur Club meets, I believe it's every other Wednesday up the Recreation Center on Tom Miller Road. In May Courier, I believe it is. And because you can go out and buy a lot of things that you don't need. And, if you see those fellas, they'll get you the basics. And then if that's what you want, then you can go from there. But that's the way I would recommend it.
Now, do you need a first-class license?
Oh, you have to be licensed. Yeah, you have to. You have different classes, and now they've done away with the code. You can have a no-code license.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, there's a no-code license, and it gives you some 2-meter privileges. And what that, I think it was done just to stir the people up so they would get into amateur radio, want to go further in it. So that's basically what I think.
Do you remember what your first radio was?
Well, I was in Citizens Band, but after I got out of the CB area, I went into a Yaesu FT101 Echo, and it was a beauty. I gave it to my son-in-law. He's a ham.
Did you really?
Yeah, he's a ham radio operator.
And you've added a lot of stuff along the way.
And I enjoy it. The only thing that I've got to do is I've got to get with the fellas. I've tried to stay away from the computer, but I have to say that I'm going to have to get in the computer business because they're doing a lot of it, and I'm going to have to do that.
Going to have to make that big move.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I don't know. You ever get to read old papers?
Oh, we love old papers. We have a friend in Vermont that collects old newspapers every now and again. Wait a minute. What is this? The Morning Telegram. Plattsburgh, New York. Monday, September 20th, 1886? What's this all about?
Yeah.
Champlain Foundry and Machine Shops?
Sure. I had those laminated. I found those at my grandfather's house, and I had them laminated so the kids could read them at school. And the kids get a great time, going through them. They couldn't believe that there were papers that old. But you're more than welcome to take them home and read them if you want. When you're
Goodness,
through,
isn't
just
this
bring
the
them down.
neatest things? I love old newspapers.
Yeah, I do too. I really do.
This friends of ours, what's his name, Calvin?
Gary Chartrand.
Gary Chartrand over in Vermont is now collecting a series of newspapers from all over the country, anything that's connected with the Battle of Plattsburgh and the War of 1812. And hopefully by next year's celebration, he'll have an entire collection.
Well, Tucky Giroux has a lot of stuff that was found down at the DeVoe house where the cannonball went through the wall. She, he might check with her. Might be able to get some copies of that. She won't part with it, but yeah, she might be able to get it. But you're welcome to take all of those. They're, the Plattsburgh Press is in there, so take them with you and enjoy them.
Is there no end to what you've got hidden in the corners of your
all over the
home?
place. All over the place. I've got my son. I've got his stuff from the Henry M. Jackson. That's the first missile they launched from it. That's coming out of the water.
You walk over that way, and I'll follow you. I want to get a picture of that missile. That's quite a picture. That's what
Yeah.
now?
That's I forget the name of the missile, but that's being launched from the Henry M. Jackson. And this was one of the ceremonies, and my son is on one of the officers on board. And the funny thing is that the Henry M. Jackson was supposed to be the USS Rhode Island, and they sent all the fathers a buckle, all the officers.
It says USS Rhode Island on the buckle.
But it doesn't exist. They changed it because Henry M. Jackson, the senator from the state of Washington, died, and he was a great believer in military defense. So they renamed the boat to Henry M. Jackson. So I have the buckle here.
One of each.
Yeah.
That's truly amazing. Look at this down here now. All right. QST devoted entirely to amateur radio. Published since 1915. It was a quarter.
Right.
And it was published in March 1928.
Yep. Yep.
Where did you ever get a hold of that, Mr. Righi?
My friend Alfred H. Baker gave that to me. He found it and he said, "Would you like it?" And I said, "Gee, yeah, I'll take it." And so I've been very fortunate. A lot of people have done a lot of things for me, and I appreciate
great? A double detection receiver with band bass filter and screen grid tube.
it. Yeah.
Look at the
Oh,
cases.
when you look in there, it's unreal. That thing weighed 10 ton. Took 2 boys and an elephant to carry it around.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Hopefully, we'll end this program outside and get a look at your tower there.
Yeah.
You said you don't really relish climbing it much anymore.
No, I'm past that stage. I've had some friends who have climbed it for me, but this time I've got to take the whole thing down. I think the easiest way to do it is to get the platform, and go up and get it, bring
Get
it
a
down.
cherry picker and
You
go
darn
up there
right,
and reach out and do what
The
you
heck
got to
with some
do.
old man smashing into the ground.
Is there any RF on an antenna like that? Does that bother you?
No, it doesn't.
In other words, you're not going to get a shock grabbing
Oh
onto it?
no, you wouldn't at all.
I know in the big radio stations, sometimes you get RF on the tower, and I've seen those guys going to change light bulbs get halfway up, and they start to shudder a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes you can pick up some of that stuff, static charge. Yeah, you can pick up, and I never have. I've been fortunate, never had that happen.
The ice storm didn't do any nasty things to your antenna?
Oh boy, it looked like it was bad for a while. I mean, it was bent over so unreal. I thought it was gone. A couple of my friends lost theirs.
Really?
Fortunately, I didn't. But
That's great. Now, before we leave this room and finish this program, Calvin has assured me that our audience has to know about Billy Beer. We showed, of course, he and I knew what Billy Beer was, but explain to me how this Billy Beer all came about.
well, if you remember President Carter,
Billy Carter.
Billy, yeah, President Carter had a brother, and I guess he was quite a beer drinker, and he came out with his own beer. I don't know who did it for him, but
I've forgotten his autograph was even
yeah,
on there.
But Utica, New York came out with it, and they had it all autographed, like you say. And I kept a can of it. Like you, I had more, but some of my friends came down, and before you know it,
was gone,
I was giving them. I don't know what they ever did with it, but they took it home.
Yeah.
But
President Carter
that
was
was
not
Billy Beer.
necessarily always proud of his
And
brother's
that's where your
reputation.
mash beer, you remember your mash beer from the 4077 on TV.
I
That-
didn't even know there was such a
Oh
thing.
yeah, sure, there was a mash beer. One of my friends sent that to me, and I chuckled on all of those.
Oh, those are neat. I might mention that this is a special kind of receptacle
Yeah.
holding thing for
Yeah,
those. Huh?
it's for the beer cans.
No topper beer.
Oh,
Wait a
there's
minute.
got to be a topper around here someplace. I know somewhere in here. I've got the Harleys, and I know darn well there's got to be a topper, old topper. You mean? Old topper,
Boy,
yeah.
I can remember some
Yeah.
varieties of beer that don't exist very long and never did for reasons that were obvious when you tasted this stuff. And old and
This I wanted to tell you. Dick Trombley gave me this picture, and this is
let me
when,
move over here so Calvin can
This
get a
is,
better shot of that.
this was when they had the massacre of the athletes, and this is one of,
1972.
that's a print from Bill Gallows. He's in the Daily News, and that I really appreciate.
What a tragic moment that was.
Oh,
I'll
it
never
was,
forget,
it
boy, were
was.
our eyes glued to the television screens way back when.
Yeah,
And every now and again, you'll turn on the news and you'll see a
Yeah.
copy of those guys on up on the roof trying to get in. Oh, my.
Unreal. But that I had to get in. That was important. Other than that, Gordy, that's just about my life.
You haven't even begun. We could do 16 of these programs and not even scratch the surface. We're going to go outside and wrap it up standing underneath your antenna. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Let's
do it. All right.
We have bright sunshine as we stand outside the Righi household here at Main Mill Street in Plattsburgh, but I wanted to get a shot of that antenna. It's moving a little bit up there today. We got a nice brisk breeze, which doesn't make it feel like 85 degrees at all, does it?
Right. And yeah, it's moving a little bit, but it's not going to move with me on it. I've got friends who are silly enough to climb that thing, and I know probably Al Haggett would be up there saying, "My God, this is nothing," you know. And I love the man, and he's something else. But I'm going to get a cherry picker to bring it down, because I've got a couple of coils. Oh no, there's no sense in having an old man bounce on tarmac.
No, you only do that one. It may be fun while you're in the air. It ain't no fun when you hit the bottom. I wanted to talk just for a moment. Calvin said, well, where are some of those caricatures you're talking about, your drawings? You don't have too many around because you draw a picture of somebody and give it to them, don't you?
Yeah, that's usually what I do.
I got a couple of really neat ones at home, I'll tell you.
I'll tell you, I can remember your granddaughter being in class and taking a few of the drawings, and I have fun. It was always a lot of fun to do that, and you could use it in the classroom as an incentive for a youngster to try a little harder, you know. And if he did a good job, really he tried to put out for you, you know, work, you gave him a drawing, and God, he thought he had the world, and I thought I had the best of two worlds.
And they still do, and those drawings at my house, and I'm sure at their houses, are cherished. Yeah. Sal Righi, thanks so much for having us here today. I'm just sorry your wife was a big chicken and ran away. Maybe next time we'll get her on camera and find out what the real Sal Righi is all about.
All right, well, I thank you, Gordy, for taking me down memory lane and letting me recall a lot of the great people that I've met in the city of Plattsburgh, including yourself, and all the things. I'd like to thank them for everything that they have done for me to make my life what it is. And I can leave this earth a real happy man.
And the feeling is mutual. You've been a good long friend of mine for such a long period of time, and it's great to sit down and just palaver.
Right.
There's a word you don't hear every day.
I'd like to thank our cameraman. That poor guy has been all over the place here.
Up and down. We've taken him up and down ladders and into the bowels of ships and up on the bridges, and he and I have traipsed through the woods together. We went looking at a cemetery last week, and we had more pollen on us than the trees had when we got out of there.
You know, the only thing I have never seen Calvin on camera. You know, I have never seen.
We trapped him a couple of times when he got some awards, and every now and again, when I'm stumped for a name or something, I'll shove the microphone at him and at least get his voice on there. But he's been doing these programs since way back in 1983. Am I right there? Yeah. He started with the late Bob Venn, who did a program called What's Going On Here. Yeah. Well over 500, maybe 550 of those programs, so we were kind of proud to take the torch and start again with our little corner. We've been a few places, Calvin and me.
I guess you have. And I can't thank you fellows enough for making my day.
We're delighted to do it. You made ours too, Sal Righi. Have a wonderful life.
Thank you.
And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.